everyone, and welcome to Dealer Synergy's Webinar Wednesdays. My name is Shawnee Houlihan, and I'll be your moderator today. This week's webinar is titled Goals and Projections, presented by General Manager of Dealer Synergy, Joe Calla. Joe has over 14 years experience in the automotive industry. He has experience as a salesperson, used car manager, new car manager, internet sales manager, and internet director. Before we get started, I just want to remind you that you can ask us questions. You can send them through the questions feature located on your screen, and we will answer them at the end of the presentation.
All right. So, hey, everyone. This is Joe Calla, and we are going to get rolling here, make sure that everybody's all set up. So, as we go forward here, I just want everybody to understand and realize that the purpose of what we're doing right now is simply so that we can, again, and if you know me, and if you've talked to me or listened to me talk at any time, my whole thing is based off of the philosophy of Truett Cathy, the founder of Chick-fil-A, and when they were trying to look at how they can improve what they do, Truett Cathy made a statement that kind of revolutionized the entire philosophy and infrastructure of how Chick-fil-A does business. And he basically said, if we get better, our customers will demand that we get bigger. And so our main focus here is to just really work on improvement, to get better and to sharpen our skills and sharpen our abilities both personally and professionally. So the purpose, again, of this webinar is to go to, see here. All right. The purpose of this webinar is simply to help you walk away with a clear plan on how to put together a strategy to achieve your goals. Okay? Basically, what you're going to take away from this is simply, how do I plan out my month? How do I accomplish my goals? How much money do I want to earn this month, and how many cars do I want to sell this month or be a direct contributor to influence in selling this month? Because I understand that, we have coordinators, we have actual sales reps, we have managers, so there's different roles and responsibilities that come here, so that when we ask these questions and when you're looking at your month, you want to make sure that you do ask these questions so that you can have a target to aim for. Because if you're never asking these questions, then you're just basically scattershot, trying to just see if you can make something come together based off of just what's in your head. So it's very important to make sure you gather your goals on paper, and asking these questions will help give you a better target to aim for. All right? So our starting point, in order for us to, again, set goals and do what we need to do to achieve our goals, the first thing we need to make sure that we do is not wait until the month has already started to begin preparing for next month's goal. In other words, like right now, today is the 12th of November. If you're sitting here today with trying to set yourself up for November's goals starting right now, then for the most part, you're going to be playing catch-up because we're already behind the ball 12 days into the month. So I know personally of people who are preparing their plans and goals for the first quarter of 2015 right now. Now, look, we don't have to plan out that far in advance, but we need to begin planning and putting next month's goals and plans into motion at least 5 days before the current month ends. In other words, if we're going into December and then we want to start putting our goals for December together so we can have our targets and what we're looking to aim for, we should start putting that plan together the week before, the first 5 days before we actually go ahead and get into that month, okay? So the thing that I want us to remember with this whole thing is this. Is simply a failure to plan properly is why people experience failure to reach their goals. Again, a failure to plan properly is why people experience failure to reach their goals. I think that I've heard, the cliche way of saying it is that failure to plan is planning to fail. So basically, without a plan or without a map or without an actual, step-by-step list of how to get to where you're going, then how are you going to ever get there? So, again, failure to plan properly is why people experience failure to reach their goals. All right, as we go into our next piece here. Hold on. All right. So, what we need to do, our second piece of what we need to do, our first thing is, again, don't wait till the month has already started to begin preparing for next month's goals. Secondly, start off with how many working days we have within that month to accomplish our goals. We need to factor in the holidays, our vacation days, our personal days, days off, and other days where we might be in a meeting or off-site. So we got to keep these things into our into mind when we go ahead and do this. So again, for example, for November, for this month here, okay, there's a total of 30 actual days in November, and but just because there's 30 days, it doesn't mean that we have 30 actual working days specific to our schedules that we have at work. So we have to ask ourselves, how many of those days will we actually be working? So again, we need to factor in the holidays. So we understand this month we have Thanksgiving, okay? Many dealerships are closed. Most, I should say, are closed on Thanksgiving. So that's a day that's off the books for you to work. The other thing is your days off. Again, for the most part, I get it. We're in the car industry, so I know we all have actual schedules, but we also understand that schedules sometimes just go to the wayside, especially when we're in an event that we have for a mailer for the week or the weekend, or if we have, the end of the month or whatever it may be. We go outside the boundaries of what our actual schedules are. So I understand all that. But we need to factor in, again, the schedule days. In other words, 5 working days for the week that we're going to be working, and we have the 2 days off, okay, typically. So with that being said, what we need to do is realize that, okay, this leaves us now, based off of a 30-day total month work for the total days for the month, we actually have 19 total working days in the month of November. So we need to now figure out then how to accomplish our goals, not based off of 30 days, but now based off of 19 working days, okay? So the third thing is this. We need to now, go to the next piece here if we could, begin with the goal or the end in mind, okay? So again, the first thing is don't wait till the month starts to start preparing for next month's goals. The second thing is start off with how many working days we have within that month to accomplish our goals. And then the third thing is we need to begin with the goal in mind, begin with the end in mind. Start with what you want to accomplish first so that you can build the bridge and attach where you are now to where you want to be in the long term. So again, in order for you to get to where you're going, you need to have the steps in the direction in order to get there. You need to know what turn you need to make and when you need to make it. Okay? We got to think of it like a GPS navigation system. And when we think of it like that, you see obviously this graphic here of actually my GPS. And so that, you go ahead and put into in order to get to your final destination, you put in your address of where you're headed. Especially if you've never been there before, you need to input that address so that you can, again, know how to get to where you're going. And then once you put it in there, it actually calculates the necessary steps to take in order for you to get there. So it'll show you how long it'll be. It'll show you how far ahead it may be. It'll show you how long you're going to be on that road. It's going to show you the turns, again, coming down after you hit those steps. And again, so this is very important for us to make sure if we're trying to hit, again, our end result, that goal, we need to make sure we break it down which brings us to our next point. We need to make sure that we break it down to the smallest pieces possible. Okay, so we need to break it down to the smallest pieces possible. Again, First, don't wait until the end of the month is already started to begin preparing for next month's goals. Second, start off with how many working days you have within that month to accomplish your goals. Third, begin with the end in mind. Begin with the goal. And then fourth, break it down to the smallest pieces possible. In other words, take your goal and dissect them to see what they look like in the smallest possible pieces. What does that mean? So let's go to the next piece. So, for example, let's look at the overall number of, let's just say, 55 deals, okay? 55 deals is what we want to accomplish for the month of November, let's just say, in our department, let's just say. So here's what that looks like by the halfway point, okay? We cut that in half. That's 22 and a half deals by the midway point of the month, which is November 15th, okay? So I always usually say this when I speak to my dealers and to many of the dealers that I do talk to. I like to make sure that if we're aiming for our ultimate goal, we want to be aiming to hit 60% of that by the halfway point of the month, for sure. Now, if we just split this in half at 50%, we see where we're at 22 and a half. In the car business, I realize and recognize that the second half of the month typically is always a little bit stronger than the first half. So if we can really emphasize our super focus of attention to trying to hit at least 60% of our goal within the first half, then for the most part, unless something crazy happens in our industry or in our demographic, or if something happens nationally that really affects the ability for us to hit and achieve the sales, for the second half, typically we can double what we put out in the first half. So again, make sure that if we're aiming for our ultimate goal of 55 deals, halfway point we understand is 22 and a half deals. Keep in mind, try to aim for 60% of your goal within the first half of the month, because then, again, it helps people not just get lax from the month that they just ended as they roll into the next month and figure, well, let's take a few days to get back into the swing of things, take a break. We just really, pushed as hard as we could at the end of the month, and now we're kind of like just going to rest the first couple of days, and then we'll go ahead and try to catch up as we get closer to the middle of the month. And then as we get to the end of the month, we realize we're really off, and wow, now we really need to step it up again, and now we start pushing hard, and then all of a sudden we hit the end of the month, and then we start over again into that whole, sequence. But the thing is, we don't want to keep playing catch-up, okay? We want to go ahead and keep strong, stay strong, and again, I always say this, if you take each day that you have for every day of the month and work each day, the month takes care of yourself. If you give it everything you have for the day, because today is where we live, if we do what we need to today to accomplish what we're going to need to today, then the month will take care of itself. Again, so when we go to looking at this, we'll break it down to the smallest pieces. Let's go to, again, halfway point. Then we go weekly, which is if we divide it by the 4 weeks, or if there's 5 weeks, we go 4.3, whatever it is for that month. Then on a daily basis, what does it look like to deals? How many deals does that mean that we need to be able to deliver each day to hit our goal? Okay? So, again, let's go to the next piece here. How many team members do we have to work with in order to accomplish that goal? We want to make sure that it's a team effort so that everybody has a part to play in adding to the number to achieve the ultimate goal. Okay? So how many team members do we have? Let's just say it's 3 team members. Okay? So how do we break that down, and how do we create an action plan for 3 people to create 55 total deals for our month, for our goals, okay? So let's go ahead and look a little bit further here. So, for example, we have 3 people, and we set our goals at 120 calls per day. That equates to 360 total calls for our department within the 3 people that are there. We then have 19 working days, and we say based off of the working days that we have, we multiply that times the amount of calls per day, which equates to a goal of 6,840 calls for the month, okay? And so we see it as a daily, weekly, monthly, a goal. You can break this down, okay? Also, we go into the total number of phone calls, and we utilize our connection ratio. We understand that there's an average, a national average, between 11 and 14% for connections. So let's just say if we can create a 12% connection ratio, this is what it looks like when it comes to how many times we actually connect with the total calls that go out, which is 821. Okay? Next piece that we see here is that the 821 calls, if we can set 28% of them to appointments, that looks like 229.82. So let's just say 230 appointments that would be set then for the month. Okay? Then from there, if 57% would show, because we understand that the national average between show rates are between 50 and 60%, dealer synergy, our rates, we have some of our dealers hitting between 62 and 67% on show rates, okay? So if we get 57% of them to show, that's 131 people showing up. Then if we're selling and our floor is strong enough to get 42% on a closing rate, that's putting us right where we are on our numbers for 55 total units. Again, this isn't a perfect world. I get it. So our main emphasis is we want to do everything we can to at least have the goal so that we can know what we can use to measure against as a standard for us to try to accomplish these numbers instead of just taking each day and reactively responding to everything that happens to us. This is giving us a proactive goal and a proactive target to aim for. So as we go to our next slide here, if we break it down even further per coordinator, this is what it would look like each person would be responsible for in order for them to be able to hit the total number of 55 deals. That one coordinator can hit 120 calls, right, per day. On a 19-day work month, then we figure they're gonna be accountable for 2,280 calls. If they connect at 12%, they're at 274 total connections. Then, if they turn 28% of them into appointments, that's 76 appointments per rep. Okay? Then, if 57% of them show, that's 43 or 44 total shows that end up coming into your store, which gives, again, 43 to 44 opportunities for your sales floor and management team to close them up at a 42% rate, equating to 18 total units per rep for the month. So you can break it down. Again, what we're doing is we're showing you how you can break it down as small as you can, showing you also the monthly, the weekly, and the daily goals for you to be able to aim for so that you can have something to achieve and try to hit your goals. So let's just go through this one last piece here before I go. You can go to the next sheet here, but what we want to do is, again, how do we dissect the 120 calls per day down to the hour? So the first piece, again, before we talk about this, is we're going to talk about, again, what we're doing here. Number one, not waiting till the end of the month, or we're not waiting until the month has already started to begin preparing for next month's goal. Number two, starting off with how many working days we have within that month to accomplish our goals. Number three, beginning with that goal in mind before we start. And then number four, breaking it down to the smallest pieces possible. So this is how we break it down to our smallest pieces possible. We go to our outbound call tracking sheet that we created here to help our coordinators organize themselves in figuring out how to create 120 calls within a day. In this sheet, what it does is, again, it provides a map. It gives organization and order to someone's day to create an opportunity for them to be able to see, first and foremost, that, look, 15 calls an hour is going to bring them to their 120 calls within an 8-hour work shift, okay? In this time, what you can do is how you use this sheet is really going to be key to whether you can create a very good order and organization for you to be able to measure and hold people accountable to with what they're doing with this sheet. In other words, you can do one of two different ways to keep measurement on what's happening with this call sheet, okay? So for the first hour, what's going to happen is every call that's made and that's left a message, let's just say, you can do one of two ways. You can use symbols or you can use colors to determine what means what. For example, if you leave a message and you cross out the one with a green highlighter, that stands for message left. Or if it was a slash through it, that stands for message left. If you go and then make a connection but don't set an appointment, you can go ahead and put a orange or a yellow slash through it, or you can put a square around it, okay, to state that's what that means. Or if you actually set the appointment, you can put a star over it or a circle or you can use, another color, whether it's, red or whatever it may be, okay? So you can utilize these different symbols and colors to help show you what's happening during that hour. At the end of the day, when these are handed in, you can see in the bottom boxes it says connections, appointments, and then incoming calls. So let's just say an incoming call comes in, and during that 15 calls in that first hour, then you can know that an incoming call is designated for a triangle or for whatever other color. And now what happens is now you can when this is handed in, management can see what's happening per hour. And I even had one of my stores take this and create a connections and appointments Excel sheet that shows this number every hour upon the hour for each day of the week. And it shows that for each day of the week and each hour that there's actually X amount of connections and appointments being made. And we were able to identify that between 9 o'clock and 1 o'clock in the afternoon for this particular dealer in their area and demographic, they had to have their highest connections and appointment rate set in that time frame. So what does that mean, and what does that do to them in helping them stay in order? That helps them schedule properly and saturate opportunities for call volume in those times so they can maximize those connections and those appointments. Okay? So with that being said, that is what we're talking about regarding goals and projections. So I'd like to say thank you for those who actually attended here and who are on here with us. And at this point, what we want to do is we want to look at, I guess here, it looks like we want to look at some questions of some sort here that we may have had. So let me just bear with me as I try to open this up here and see what questions we have. How do you stop the music? The music's playing. The music's distracting. Okay, I guess not. Don't want to disconnect. All right, so I apologize. I guess we have music playing in the background. I don't even know. So, do we have any other questions, or anybody has questions specifically right now that we can answer? Okay. Well, thank you guys, everybody. We appreciate it. And I'm going to turn it back over to Shawnee. And thank you again for your time today.
Thank you, everyone, for coming to the webinar. We just want you to stay tuned for next week's webinar. There will be information sent out for you and how to register for that. Also, this webinar was recorded, and we will be sending you a copy of it. So if you have any questions, make sure you contact me, Shawnee at dealersynergy.com, or you can call me at 856-546-2440, extension 34. Thank you.
Thank you for watching this week's episode of Webinar Wednesday. If you liked it, you're going to love Bradley On Demand. Bradley On Demand is the most advanced virtual training, tracking, testing, and certification platform, featuring hundreds and hundreds of advanced videos that will train you step by step how to sell more cars, more often, and more profitably. Sign up now.